Brian Fred Warren MacGregor production, and no part, whole or otherwise, is to be copied, duplicated, reproduced or transmitted in any form, way, manner or type without the express written permission of the sole owner, Brian Fred Warren MacGregor, 2021. This is a science fiction episode written for entertainment purposes, suitable for a mixed audience in March 2021 by himself only. The third of Sides, Season 1, Episode 3, The Language of Stars. Written wholly by Brian Fred Warren MacGregor in March 2021. Whilst language serves to communicate, you may wish none was ever served once communicated. Now, the professor, who was known to his students as Mitch, well, he was a genial language instructor who lived alone after a difficult divorce. Mitch, the prof, as he was known to his good friends, had no children, or as he put it, he just never got around to it, as there was languages to be learned. Anyway, he had taken a few days off from being the prof as such, as there was a number of storms or hurricanes approaching from just out at sea, which were moving inland slowly, albeit progressively, here bringing destruction more than likely. In any case, it seems they were also splitting up as such and spreading out for some reason, although who knows, as Mitch put it himself, once it had been decided to close the college for a week or so. Mitch loved the news as such and paid great attention to it along with the weather. He didn't care for much else in terms of television. In fact, only the news and weather channels are for him, he quite readily told his students and fellow instructors. Mitch hoped to escape the worst of the storms that were approaching as such by moving out of the city back to his cabin next to the fields, to the forests, to the countryside, where he lived in times of trouble, just nearby the calmest stream. He knew it would not be calm in the city, and although his cabin wouldn't be either, out there in that field it would at least be a little more tranquil as such, although the waterway named as Minnow Stream would probably be raging again. He joked soon after arriving at his cabin retreat it would be called Minnowless Stream, as after the storms passed over and by, these storms would usually dissipate, usually just soon after coming inland. He was hoping to be far enough away from them as such, or at least was hoping they would have lost a lot of their guts, as he put it. So Mitch got settled in the cabin whilst he could and waited on the storm, and did so watching television, and yes, the weather, and the news, although the channels out there were not so great, nor the reception either, which was just the way it was there. He watched the news and weather, which reported the storm amongst various other local, national and international events. Either way, he knew the storms were coming, and that was enough. Before Mitch called it a night, he battened down the hatches, as it was going to be a tougher morning, he felt, and the night would not be the best either. He knew enough about the weather from the television to predict it wouldn't be good at early o'clock, and so the windows and doors and everything that could be nailed shut, well, where, you know. On the way back in from outside, he took a few logs out of an old shopping cart which sat at the front porch door and dumped them on the fire, as he knew it was going to be a cold one through the night. He'd been through this before, so knew the script and knew what to do, and better yet, what not to do. So once everything was shut tight, as in shut tight, he went to bed, half expecting to wake up in his bed with the rest of the log cabin missing, or at least the roof missing, with there being a bluer than blue sky above. Holy storm free. He, Mitch, was a joker, a and to himself, whilst knowing fine well it would be devastating for the want of better words. He left the television on, which was still working its way through the international news, before to the weather once again, which is the norm. News and weather normally. Mitch, for the sake of having a light in the bedroom, left the television on, although he wondered why, as the screen was pretty black with some international news about a satellite amongst a new space mission and how exactly it is possible to live on Mars. He wasn't too interested, or rather couldn't be bothered putting the television off, but just having it on would be good in that it would show if there was power being fed in through the electricity cables from the township, many miles away. He was, half expecting to lose power at some point during the night, which is fair enough in unsettled weather. This happens everywhere. Mitch was notorious for going to bed early, but on this occasion it was truly justified. He was hoping to sleep through the worst of the storm, and anyway, he was tired from the long journey, so there was every chance he would be out cold and wake up post-storm more so as such. So he got all tucked up in bed and read a few books in rare languages before conking out with the book on his chest, which was the norm for him. Well, him anyway. The storm approached and Mitch opened his eyes once or twice, maybe a little more throughout the night. As the storm neared, roared above, then slowly moved on by whilst losing strength as such all the time. In that, the winds were pretty bad, or rather pretty intense, as was the rain. If they had been any stronger, the cabin would have been more open plan in the morning and its contents over the field. Mitch fully awoke around 9 AM and thought he would have a look outside whilst having a coffee. So Mitch stuck on his dressing gown and wandered through to the kitchenette part of the cabin, pulling out milk, coffee, and then he realised he needed to go and get water, which he found rather amusing as such, which meant a change, which is what he did. The power was on, as was his television, which he then switched off, as it had served purpose in the bedroom. Mitch was notorious for being a skinflint as such, and he often said things could be done cheaper, and cheaply, and yet he would do things the cheapest, under the motto of, I will manage that myself, rather than pay money for something to get done. He knew fine well a pipe would have done the job from the stream to the cabin with pump, but no, alas, that was too simple, and moreover expensive, as he put it to his previous partner. There was no changing Mitch, who was as he always was going to be, Mitch, doing things in a Mitch way. So he chucked on his jeans, wellies and outside coat, then wandered off with a large kettle to get water, which wasn't far to be honest, but the field was well, how can I put it, damp somewhat, and a little churned up. The fact that it had been ploughed didn't help that much either. His wellies didn't work as good as what he thought, and he probably had the hardest workout just getting to the stream edge, that of Minnell Stream, which was somewhat elevated, shall we say, with, as you've guessed, no minnows, or at least dead ones he couldn't see. Whilst at this stream edge, he did note that the bank was almost touching the field itself, clearly flooded and raging. This will need filtered, he added. Ah well, such is this. Great, he then adds. My cup of coffee is brown. Before even adding the coffee, he then joked unconvincingly. At that point he adds, oh no, not again, quipping as he sees what appears another shopping cart in the stream a little down, which was bouncing about, trying to move, albeit mostly submerged in the heavily flooded stream. He adds it must have been washed down from upstate. These things happen, he adds, knowing he will need to come back and remove it once the water recedes, as it's his drinking water, and he really didn't need shopping carts in his water supply. Well, not that close anyway. He also didn't need any more shopping carts, as he had three, yes, three, all from the same stream. Mitch knows he will have to move the cart at some point, and remarks, these carts will be the death of me, I'm telling you, they will. At any rate, there was 3 others at his cabin, which kind of worked for him, as the supermarket did not want them back. Those half-wonky shopping carts, or rather, as Mitch assumed, they didn't want to travel 30 kilometres to pick up the carts, which were at best scrap. As mentioned, he had found 3 at that point, in somewhat similar circumstances, in the stream, after heavy downpours. These carts, just seemed to get trapped, or rather stuck as such, in the natural bend of the waterway, of and within the landscape. He then fills the kettle and wanders back to the cabin, tutting with half the fuel stuck to his boots. This of course made him just dandy. Well, anyway, Mitch approaches the cabin steps and kicks off his boots onto the porch. He was now seriously annoyed, and why not? Well, these boots were now about twice the weight, and he had legs like a powerlifter after training. So Mitch now wanders in from the outside as the cabin doors spring shut with a loud crack. I'm going to have to go back there, and not just for water again, he then mutters, really annoyed. He then adds another cart. Oh yeah, I'm going to have more carts in the supermarket. That's 3. No, wait, 4 now, on my land. Getting this shopping cart across the field is going to be good, great. Whilst it was midsummer as such, he wasn't expecting it to be sunny, not today anyway, or at least not in the way it dried up remarkably quickly and became rather warm. That's what happens in summer, Mitch now was settled in front of his other television in the living room, and he had the news and weather channels on. Oh great, more spacey news. Mitch, albeit a scholar, was not a big fan of space exploration. Rather, he liked words and languages, and science made little sense as such, which is the way he looked at it anyway. He got comfy, and the day passed happily watching television. He knew the clean-up would take several days, more so in towns, cities, and such on the way back. So he got comfy and watched television with coffee, biscuits, and more coffee. And despite being more caffeine than man, he conked out from time to time, waking up to space news, which only made him want to sleep even more so. Living on Mars, lunar space and wonky crashed satellites, and of course the moon's decaying orbit. My rear, he quips, half asleep, while snoring somewhat, and in between worlds per se. Mitch awakens to the news channel several hours later, albeit late afternoon, about 4ish, and it's scorching, as in scorching outside. Well, I never, he quips, as he quite readily notices the dead heat as such. I mean, it was warm, as in really warm, inside, and if it was like this inside, what must it be like outside? Well, he was about to find out. Things were somewhat different. Mitch was a little tired, and so leaves the television on in the living room, as he was intending to come back to it sooner rather than later. He changed his clothes again, from slightly muddy ones to new jeans and shirt, then wandered outside in his bare feet. Yeah, it's a tad warm, whilst almost blinded by broad daylight. And even that was the biggest understatement of the day, as it was like really roasting outside. And out there in the field, well, it had really dried up, as in dried. His boots were like concrete, but after carefully removing the mud, he bounced them off the porch floor. He put them on, just in case, as he planned to visit the stream for water and for the trolley, and to see if it had calmed down somewhat, which he knew just must have. Judging by the weather now. At any rate, he wandered back inside, then back outside, clean wellies and all, with the kettle in hand as such, whilst wandering across to the stream, gently whistling away, rather cheerily. As Mitch got to the stream, he was shocked. Well, he noted, It's went down, eh? The stream had pretty much went back to its more typical levels, and although there was a little dirt within it, the fish had returned. Well, a few anyway, which pleased him. He wandered down around the bend, as he couldn't see the shopping cart, which had probably just been washed a little down the way of this waterway. He got to the corner and, well, it wasn't quite a cart as such, but he had his wheelies on, so he became Inspector Mitch and waded in. Not that there was much to wade into now, but he went wading anyway. It was like a crate as such, heavily constructed and quite robust, and it had wires upon it like aerials, and to be fair, he wasn't quite sure what it was, as he's not a man of science as such. Okay, well, he wasn't at all. He initially thought it might be from a communications mast for mobile phones or something, or that someone had chucked it in the stream just to get rid of it as junk. Then it dawned upon him. It had been chucked into stream by the weather, by the storm, by the wind and rain, and by bad luck. He assumed it would be worth something, and maybe even a reward for it, which made him smile somewhat. He could now see much clearer, judging by the marks it had struck wood or trees or something made of wood on its travels. The Mitch was strong, not an athlete as such, but did train with weights and was an active gym member. He knew to stay fit, and that's what he did. He picked the box up after filling the kettle, which he placed around his neck on its cord. The box was heavy as in heavy, almost as bad as those flaming carts he moaned, but there must be a reward as such for its retrieval. Anyway, yes, and that's what he did. He staggered back to the cabin with his kettle and box, for the want of better words. He wandered into his cabin, wellies and all, with his box, and placed it upon the kitchenette table to have a better view. Ooh, he adds, it's got sockets and stuff. Aerials and yeah, aerials. Mitch's knowledge of science, or scientific devices for that matter, was not impressive, but he could use plugs and sockets, and he recognised there would be a certain socket on the underside, due to some stickered labelling, which was just next to a flat hinged panel that he rather readily set upon with a screwdriver, whilst also knowing he shouldn't be. Oofed! Crikey, it's alive, alive! Alive, he had, chuckling, as the port had a red and green light, with the green one lit just under that flat hinged panel as such. He thought for a moment and then said, yeah, why not? And pulled out his laptop to see what was on this mobile phone server type silver box, thingamabob box thingy. He powers up his laptop, then connects the port to his computer using his mobile phone data charger cable, which seemed to work well. It was recognised right away as the computer plings with a little bell indicating connectivity. Crikey, it's got a hard drive full of stuff, like voicey stuff it seems. Yeah, okay. Probably just conversations or phone calls or something. Now, this will be a laugh, he adds, as some folks say daft things over the phone. He laughs a little, loudly, then has a listen to the audio format media files. There were some video format files, but the hard drive he assumed was a bit knacked as such, as it sounded much like a hairdryer, and not an expensive one that was working either. He copies the file across, which he knows he shouldn't have, but he does it anyway, and yes, the box rattles like it's going out of fashion. He's quite excited, it seems, but not half as exciting as it was outside, as the field was being added to with a few visitors, which is strange, as the farmers have 4x4s, but old ones as such, and not these blacked out fancy ones. Ah well, he adds, must be a good year for wheat to afford them, before chuckling. He listens to a file, and is quite shocked, as it's not exactly a phone call. Messages, well, in audio and video format, are indicating welcome and hello in various languages, and this one file has a little story as such. He clicks on the last file, audio file 13, which he is about to listen to, all excited. This does not last long, as a face of utter dread comes across him. Yet, and whilst other messages were happy and cheerful, this one was not. It was a robot's voice, unlike the other one, which was happy, and was recorded by someone or something, which made things rather clear. The robotic voice asked humankind to stop us and stop, like now, from space exploration as such, or things may happen. The robot or other being said. Your planet knows nothing about sense, knows everything about greed, and yet will do anything about combining both. Your planet is safe, providing you stay there. There is no offer of any security whenever you leave. He was shocked, and at that point the box makes a horrific noise, and there is a loud crackling such, all from within. His laptop goes a bit wonky and goes off, even though only one file, the happy one, was transferred, as he directly played the other audio file, number 13, from the box directly, via the cable link to his laptop. The menu did say welcome messages 1 to 12, and yet there was 13. So his laptop dies a death, then the box fizzles somewhat, melting the communication cable. Mitch then has the bright idea of taking the box outside, as he reckoned it was now a fire risk as such, which is what it would have been. Although, now seeing sense, or at least Mitch's version of clarity, it dawns upon him he needs to take the box to the local station and plonks the crackly box type thing in the trunk of his car, before then driving off along the track to the highway. The road is very quiet, apart from a few locals up the road, as foot traffic as such, with one who seemingly has found a shopping cart themselves and decided to take it home, much like what he has done himself, albeit sober. As he sees it's a local drunk, wandering Will, who does exactly that, with his worldly possessions in the cart. The box crackles somewhat loudly, and Mitch assumes it's toast as such, but this doesn't deter him, as he turns around periodically to view the box. So, just as Mitch comes up to wandering Will on the road into the town, Will, in his eternal stupor, makes the mistake of veering a little too wide on the road for Mitch to anticipate, adjust and drive on safely, being that he is wandering Will and probably has had a skinful of something already. The road is dry and somewhat dusty, and Mitchell was driving a little too fast for his own good himself, although he was trying to get into town as soon as possible. He hit a telegraph pole, at which point the car stops very suddenly. Mitch, in his haste, did not think of putting on his seatbelt, and Will bounced off the windscreen. Then, additionally, was crushed by the box, which was like a loose cannon flying from the trunk to where Mitch sat. He stood little chance, to be fair, as Will later told the station during an interview. Anyway, Will went over to the car to see what could be done and managed to call for help using Mitch's mobile phone, which lay on the floor with a cracked screen. Will was surprised by who came. They were from the local station, although surrounded by others in more formal clothes, black coats, black sunglasses, and the like, which was strange for such a hot, sunny day. Mitch was gone, however, they were more concerned about the box than him, strangely, and they whisked the box away rather quickly before leaving the scene. Mitch, now in the back of the emergency vehicle, was past help, as Will noted, but they did try. There is now a picture of Mitch's television still on within his cabin, with within his living room with a news story where an apparent satellite which had gone missing somewhere within the storm was now found. And although rather heavily off course as such, in terms of actual predicted landing area, it was reported as being badly damaged by the said newscaster. The reporter adds further on Mitchie's television. As of today, every probe and satellite mission has failed wholly, with all devices being returned back to Earth with everything blank, with nothing recorded, nothing measured, almost like they were never even there, and yet, rather thankfully, with no recorded loss of human life whatsoever at all. The newscaster finishes off the newscast adding, perhaps humankind is not ready for space travel or exploration of any type as such. The evidence here today suggests that this is the case, and so for now at least, just to be on the safe side, these missions have been, sadly, temporarily suspended according to our source. In other news, the weather has seen a rather dramatic shift, and today, despite the earlier storms, which have been around a little while, there has been the most unprecedented positive change which simply cannot be explained at all, being also noted as occurring at the exact same time as one of the earlier mission suspension public announcements. And so from myself, Steve Michaels, for BMFWMAC News here at the Western Woodlands, it is goodbye for now. The end. Here nothing remains hidden, rather everything hides, only ever to exist within the third of sights.